Welcome back to Beyond Business Now. We're joined by the Chief Executive Officer of FNB, Bydon Longwe. Thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight.
Thanks, Jonah, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here at Diamond TV, and thank you for hosting us.
Well, it's a very interesting scenario tonight because this is the first time that you're being interviewed on TV. Even more interesting because you were appointed CEO of FNB on the 15th of July, early on this year, making you the first Zambian CEO in the 11 years history of the bank in Zambia. Now, I want to find out from you, Mr. Longwe, what sort of feelings and emotions that this evoked in you.
Jonah, thank you very much for that question. And yes, it was, a surreal moment, a humbling moment. All I can do is thank the board, the shareholders for entrusting me, to lead this great bank. This bank looks after 200,000 customers, and we have about 650, employees. And on top of that, those employees take care of about 200 dependents. So it's really, something which I hold dear to my heart. And I hope that I will be able to deliver, to the shareholders' expectation, to the board's expectations.
I know fairly well what your experience looks like, but I also want to find out I want to get it from you, what you think has prepared you to take on this huge responsibility.
Yes, Jonah, I think an opportunity like this, you have to be ready to take it. But it all goes down to, your upbringing in terms of your education. Maybe if I just give you a little bit of background, I was born on the Copper Belt, to be specific, in Kitwe, in a small township, or I should call it a compound, because that's the way we used to call it, of Ichimpe, which is between the main city of Kitwe and Mufulira, and it's a town where the mainstay of the compound is forestry. So what would happen is you go to school, you drop out of school in grade 7, and you join the forestry department as a ranger, or maybe in the nursery department, and those were the aspirations of the community that I was brought up in. When I was 12 years old, my brother, who started working in the mines, took me in, and he educated me, took me into grade schools. So it was like, a total shift, from a compound school into a mining, environment. I was privileged enough to even, get into Mpelembe, one of the prestigious schools, on the Copper Belt. At that time, I believe it still is. But unfortunately, I had to leave again after grade 9, as my parents could not afford, the school fees. So I dropped out, and I know it's now a cool thing for billionaires to say I dropped out of school, but I dropped out for 1 year, and then I resumed at Chiwala Secondary School, which is in Ndola, where I completed my grade 12. After grade 12, I was privileged enough again, to be selected for the mine scholarship, where they used to sponsor young and upcoming accountants into what we used to call accountancy training college in Chingola. So I started my accountancy course there. In 1996, I joined Deloitte & Touche in Lusaka, and proceeded. I spent about 3 years with Deloitte. In 1999, I trekked across to Botswana and joined KPMG Botswana, where I also did just about 3 years, and then joined the mainstay banking financial institution in Botswana from 2003, and I spent a good 14 years and left the financial institution in 2017. So from 2003 to 2017, I was in one financial institution, and I learned quite a lot. I spent a lot of time in the financial services sector with finance as my mainstay, or finance as my major. But I was also given an opportunity to lead, in terms of business, from a treasury point of view, asset and liability management, merchant service, merchant banking. So I had a lot of stint in different departments, but also in different countries. I spent some time in South Africa at holdings company, at group company. Spent some time in Mozambique as CFO. I actually spent most of my time in Mozambique, close to 5 years. Though, please, Jonah, don't ask me to speak any Portuguese.
I was about to ask you to speak Portuguese, actually, but thanks for the disclaimer, and I guess not. But then I want to find out something else that is interesting. And what's interesting about your appointment as CEO of F&B is the fact that it happened when COVID-19 pandemic was at its peak globally, and Zambia was being affected by this. So in your opinion, Mr. Longwe, how did that affect your plan, and what strategies have you put in place to ensure that your vision is protected?
Yes, I mean, Jonah, that's very true that I was appointed right in the deep of the pandemic. But I took advantage of that by spending, a lot of time internally, to look at our processes, to look at our internal processes, what I call the foundation, of the F&B house, and spent a lot of time with our staff. Normally, when you get appointed, there's a lot of fanfare. There's, you do a lot of cocktails. You have, client cocktails. You invite clients where you are introduced. I didn't have that chance. So what I did was to spend that time with our people, with our staff, make sure that we do certain things right in terms of processes, in terms of creating those foundations from a risk management point of view. So that has also given me time to reflect in terms of the vision of F&B, and how, we can help. As you know, our mantra is, how can we help? So we've spent a lot of time to look at the whole strategy map. As you know, from a strategic point of view, in most cases, you start from, shareholder value, say, how do we create shareholder value? And then you go, you cascade it downwards. What we've done in F&B is we flipped that and said, how can we create value for the customer? So we are now starting from the customer. You create value for that customer, and then that customer creates value, for the shareholder. So, I mean, during COVID, the COVID pandemic period, we looked at how we can help customer in terms of providing relief, in terms of making sure that the customers transacted, in a safe environment from their comfort of their homes. So we had to do a lot of development on the app so that they are able to transact, on the app or on the USSD, with their gadgets. And on the relief side, we managed to give relief, interest rate payments, principal payments, where we had customers, especially in sectors that were deeply affected, like the tourism sector, the restaurants, which closed for over, 3 months. We had to help those customers so that they were able, to defer payments in terms of principal, 6 months, 3 months in some cases. And that was well received. From a staff point of view, we made sure that we provided, the sanitizers, the normal, protocols. We followed, social distancing, making sure that everyone was masked up. So it was a totally different ballgame, from where you look at banking, first and foremost. We had to look at the health and safety of our staff and our customers. So it was an interesting period for me to take over, during this COVID pandemic. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about our people, how resilient our people are. We've had, even in the deep times of COVID, when we had cases spiking, we had our people going into the branches and making sure that the lights were on. I mean, those for us are our heroes, and we have quite a number of staff that were able to come into the office, regardless of where, the COVID pandemic, was, or in terms of, where the peak time of COVID.
Well, would you say then, very briefly, I just want to find out this from you, would you say that this was very difficult of a switch for you as an institution and for your members of staff as well? Would you say that this was a difficult switch?
Jonah, that's very interesting. Yes and no. It wasn't difficult from a point that as at FNB, we were preparing for what we used to call flexi hours, where we would allow staff to work from home. But it was more on a pilot basis, and we were envisioning that by 2025, we'll have, staff working from home and, be efficient and effective. So this just brought all the plans, forward. So it was like we had a pilot that was going on. We now had a pandemic, and we had to take it straight into production. So immediately the pandemic struck, we created an environment where staff were able to work from home. We ensured that they had laptops, they had data, so that they are able to efficiently service our customers. At one point, we had over 70% of our staff working from home. On average, I think we had about 52% of staff working from home, and were able to still deliver. The other thing where we spent some time was on the developments around the app, because what we realized is that customers were mostly coming into branch for queries, for complaints. Maybe they had a double debit on the card. We then went into production. We improved or enhanced our app so that customers did not need to come into branch. They would be at home, and they go into our app and give their compliments, give their complaints, right on the app, and we're able to get that complaint, and we're able to get that query and then resolve it, so that there's no physical interaction. So for us, that was, a great innovation. If you look at the FNB app, you go to the app, you open the app, you see there we have a section where we say, have your say. On the have your say, you can put in a complaint, you can ask a query, you can even give us a compliment. And we are able to collect that data. We're able to then attend to customer angst, without that, physical interaction. And for us, that was quite great.
It was. But then, what is your vision for the bank, for FNB, and what top 3 or 4 strategic areas have you identified to bring this to fruition?
Jonah, thank you very much for that. That's a very important question. And we, like I mentioned, we had to look at our strategic map and said, how do we refocus? So we have what we call PPC, which is people, platform, and customer, customer experiences. And the residual of that is obviously shareholder value, after you deal with the PPC, which is the financial outcome. So what we've done is around the PPC, what we're calling the PPC, is that we've focused staff on the key things that matter. Key things that matter to employees, key things that matter to staff, but also making sure that our platforms or our digital channels are fit for purpose. Our digital channels are able to solution for customers. So when we talk about the PPC, if maybe you can just allow me to expound on that. So what we mean by PPC is we have people, platform, and customer. If we delve into the people element, we have about 650, staff in FNB at the moment. The average age of our staff is about 33. Youngest is about 22. So you see the catchment of our staff. That's the millennials. And most of them are first-time jobbers, first-time, employees of an institution. So we have a big mandate to help them find their way through the corporate world. Most of them join the industry without knowing where they want to end up. You come out of varsity, you come out of college, all you're looking for is employment. And you'd say, look, I want to go into a bank. I want to join a bank. So whatever advert is there, you do apply. We get to see a lot of that. Our job, as a management, is to make sure that we nurture that talent. We identify it. We have people who came in as tellers, but now they've moved. They are probably now sitting in credit. They are sitting in other departments such as business and commercial, and also corporate and investment banking. So we have to identify that talent. We have to nurture that talent. We have to guide that talent. And for us, it's important because once we do that, our people will be able to service customers. Our people will be able to solution for customers. And then the customers will give us, the value, that we require. We'll create value for customers, and then the customers will then give us the value.
Well, you've talked about the first P, which is the people, but then I understand that there's also the platforms that you speak of, which is a very important aspect of everything. And F&B obviously has been associated with technological innovation, and this is something that actually you and I have talked about before, aside from this platform. But then, can you give us a bit more insight into what you mean when you say platform in this PPC plan?
Yes, so I mean, in terms of platform, Jonah, you look at not just the digital environment, where to simplify it, you are moving manual processes into a digital environment. We are looking at a bigger play around platform. We are looking for a platform where our customers can fully interact with us. As you may know, if I can give you an example, Jonah, you have a lot of frauds happening, a lot of scheming happening. What we realized as a sector, and I may speak for the entire sector, is most of this happens through email. When you interchange emails between your bank and your customer, some of it may be intercepted. The invoice may be intercepted. The banking details on the invoice may be copied, and then you have a compromise on the banking account. What we're looking at is to have a platform where we can interact with customers without going through other channels. So if you look at the app, if you need to do anything on the FNB app, you need to interact with us. Everything happens there. That's the world we're looking to, and that's what we're positioning this bank for. That every conversation that we have with a customer happens on the app. The platform journey has begun in earnest. We've moved a lot of manual transactions, manual processes into digital platform. But I think there's a bigger play there. We would want everything that you can think of. Hiring a taxi, you do it on the app. That's what we are looking for, to solution for customers, the needs of customers to be solutioned on the app. The other element around platform, and this is quite interesting for us, is the Cash Plus agent. I'm sure you've heard about that, the agency banking model, where we give a gadget to a business customer, an SME, so that customers are able to transact on the Cash Plus rather than coming into the branch. And we've seen great innovation here, where not only cash in, cash out, you can also do payments. You can do Zesco payments, you can do water bill payments, DSTV payments, right at the Cash Plus. What this has done is we've transferred about 27% of our transactions onto the Cash Plus agent. And we've grown to a level where we're hitting critical mass. We are sitting at about 789 agents at the moment. And mind you, Jonah, we only commenced this in 2018. So within a space of 2 years plus, we've grown the Cash Plus agency to about 789. This is a great innovation for us from a platform point of view, because all you need is a gadget, and that's why you'll be transacting, with our business customers.
And the word customer keeps coming out in all, because it's a very important part of your business. It's part of the PPC, but then you see there's a lot of issues that come out. It's common for corporate leaders to consistently talk about how important the customer is, but then the customer continues complaining about very little to no tangible interventions and initiatives that demonstrate that the organizations that they're partnering with have taken interest or take the customer seriously. So then, as F&B and as a key part of your strategy, what makes this different for you as F&B, and also to make sure that the customer really is a part of this initiative, the PPC?
Jonah, that is very important, and you are right that it may be a cliche where every bank speaks of customer being king or being queen, but it's really what you do. What you do in terms of servicing the customer. But crucially, I think, let me speak, from where I sit as CEO now. I'm the voice of the customer within FNB. That's how seriously I take this issue. When we have discussions, strategy discussions with our teams, we take it to the basics, where we explain how FNB makes money. And it's ironic that you come out of there and you realize that your salary is actually paid by the customer. It's not paid by the institution. It's paid by the customer. And we take it to the basics where we explain the importance of customer. But yes, the issues around complaints are there, and the issues around queries are there. The key issue is the turnaround time. How soon you get back to the customer to resolve the issue. How soon you are able to help customer in resolving these angst, the issues around transactions, the issues around investment, the issues around the lending, the credit side. And we focus our attention on these four key pillars, which is the transact, the invest, the insure, and also the lending. So when we have a relation, or when we are about to create a relationship with the customer, this is how we normally do it. We select our customer. We would like that customer to start transacting with us. That's the basic pay-ins, pay-out. The customer trusts us. Once that customer trusts us, they'll be able to give us an investment, or they'll be able to give us a savings account, because they trust that this bank is going to create value, for them. After that, we discuss, other products such as insurance, which is, very important now. Insurance is now, a way of investment, for an eventuality. And we help our customers to see the best product that they can take on insurance. It's only after that, because then you've created a relationship, through transact, through the investment. It's easier now for the bank to lend. It's easier for the bank to lend to a customer, because they understand the profile of the customer. They understand that this customer is honorable. They understand that this customer is trustworthy, and that customer also trusts FNB. So when you get into a lending relationship, you're already on the journey, ultimately to get to the credit side. We don't flip it the other way, where you start, lend and then transact, invest and insure. We start from, the transact pillar. And we're quite deliberate about it. We believe that that's the way, relationships are nurtured, are created. And it's really helped us, to understand the needs of our customers over time.
Very interesting. So then I believe that all these things that you've said simply set this institution and the customers for growth, and consistent growth, that is.
Yes, that's very right, Jonah, that we are setting our customers, for growth, because we understand our customers. But what's also crucial is we understand the needs of our customer. I can give you an example in one of the sectors that we were quite active. Very few people actually know that we're quite active in the agri sector. We support farmers, in Mukushi, in Pongwe. We've got, I think, a few in Serenje, and also in the southern province. In all the farming blocks, we've got a presence there. I think what this has given us, in terms of, what I took you through, the transact, invest, insure, and lend, is that we fully appreciated the needs of the farmers. The farming is very crucial to the country. As you know, we have a deficit in terms of FX, but farming can actually bring in, quite a lot from an FX point of view. If we start exporting, say, wheat, we have farmers that are doing, great in Mukushi, on wheat farming. We have farmers, if my statistics are correct, we have a production level of about 160 to 200. So from an agri point of view, we are helping the farmers, to create that entire value chain. And where we've started is looking at farmers that are exporters, farmers that look at products such as wheat. As you know, the production of wheat, currently we do have a deficit, which means that we do import wheat, which puts pressure on our FX. So as FNB, what we've seen is for us to help, from an FX point of view, instead of just relying on the mining, proceeds from FX, is that we support the farmers, to ramp up production, in wheat, to ramp up production on seed maize, which they're able to export, and then they earn, forex for us. And this is very crucial for us. In FNB, we're quite deliberate around agric. We've looked at, we've actually set up a food department, an agric department headed by an agronomist, not a banker, someone who can give us advice on how to lend to this very exciting sector. And we still believe there's a lot of value that we can get out of agric. If you look at the current stats, Zambia has about 75 million hectares. And out of that, we have about 43.6 million hectares of arable land. Only 6 million hectares is being cultivated. 6 million, only 14% is being cultivated. So as a bank, we've taken a strategic intent that we're going to support agric, and we're quite active on the agric sector. Our balance sheet is skewed towards agric. We have about 30% of our loans sitting in the agric space. So we're quite active, and we hope to continue doing that. Last week I was in Mukushi. We interacted with the farmers. They have a lot of challenges there, but one of them, which hopefully we can solution for, is the financing, and that's what FNB is trying to help the farmers in these farming blocks.
All right. So then, thank you so much for joining us on Beyond Business tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Jonah, for having me. It was a pleasure. I enjoyed the conversation. It's not an interview; it was a conversation, and hope you can invite us again to talk about the interesting things that are going on, from a macroeconomic point of view. But crucially, we can also talk about the sectors that we see to thrive post-COVID. We've spoken about agri. Probably we can come back and talk about energy. We can talk about the tourism. How does it recover? And how can FNB help through that? So all I can do now is thank you for having me, and look forward to coming back. Thank you.
Look forward to having you again. Thank you so much for speaking with us on tonight's edition of Beyond Business. Chief Executive Officer of FNB, Bydon Longwe, they are speaking with us about the growth of the institution and some of the initiatives they are putting in place. My name is Dingindaba Jonah Buyoya, and my business here is done.